Everyone, welcome to lesson 3 of our Unit 30 Digital Graphics unit. In this unit, we're going to be looking at output images and image capture. So when we're talking about digital graphics, how do we capture those images? How do we and what outputs are those images going towards? Okay, so let's work through this. So how many ways can you think of that allow images to capture, that you could capture images? Okay, so this would be a good point to just pause the video and have a quick think. I'm going to assume you've all done that, and then I'm going to move on. So a camera, a digital camera. Once upon a time it would be a camera, but now you've got DSLRs obviously, or you've got your phones, your camera phones, which most of you are used to. Okay, so basically the way a camera works is by capturing light through a lens and basically projecting that onto a photo-sensitive surface in the machine that records that light and enters it onto the surface, which will then obviously digitally store your information. So in digital graphics, we sometimes will use photographs. We'll take a photograph and manipulate that photograph to use it for a purpose. So for example, it might be as simple as taking a photograph and placing it in the newspaper, or it might be something like taking a series of images, photoshopping them together to create a more attractive piece of artwork that will either go on a poster or a film poster or so on. Okay, so imagine the pictures are taken of actors and actresses, put on posters, and then a load of sort of post-production work is done to those images to make them look dynamic and more intriguing, so that when you put them on the wall of the cinema, people are going to want to watch that film. So you will use cameras for that. You can also use a scanner. So basically a scanner, I mean, bear in mind, obviously, this course was written in 2010, so scanners are rather out of date at this stage. However, it is still written in the Btec guidelines, so that's why we talk about it. So a scanner basically optically scans an image, or a 3D image nowadays with 3D scanners, but it uses bright light, moving optical array, in charge coupled device. Okay, but basically the way it will work is you might draw something, put it down onto paper, or have an image pre-existing. You will scan it in, and that makes a digital copy of your physical image or your physical piece of work. Okay, so you've now got a digital copy on the computer that you can manipulate and work with. And a graphics tablet, okay, this is classed as an input device, just as your mouse keyboard would be. And with this graphics tablet, it allows you to intuitively be able to draw freehand onto your screen. So I can be in Photoshop using a graphics tablet or Illustrator and so on, drawing freehand on my graphics tablet, and it will capture those images on the computer. I can then use those images in my work, or manipulate them as I wish. And basically these hand-drawn images then become digital graphics. Now let's look at output mediums. So what output mediums do we associate with digital graphics? Okay, so one maybe less obvious one, but a plotter. Okay, so let me read out about it and then explain what a plotter is. Essentially, we're talking about a large printer here. So a plotter is a device that draws pictures on paper based on commands from a computer. These plotters differ from printers in that they draw lines using a pen. Okay, so obviously your printer's spraying your ink on, or however it chooses to apply the ink, or laser jet, or whatever you're using. However, a plotter will use a pen inside the machine, as you can see in the middle image, to apply that information. And as a result, you get a continuous line, whereas printers can only stimulate lines by printing close spaced series of dots. Okay, so multicolor printers use different color pens to draw different colors. So in general, plotters are considered more expensive than printers, which they most definitely are, and they're used in engineering applications where precision is mandatory. So I've actually used them before when we've made floor plans and things like that needed to be at scale. You can print them off, and then therefore you're able to measure them off with a ruler. You can print them super large, bigger than sort of A0 or even larger than that, so you can print them off and pin them up on the wall, and you've got a scale reference of your drawing, and where basically precision's vital when you're talking about engineering, so everything has to be to minute detail. Okay, so a plotter, essentially a larger version of a printer. You can also print off, obviously, digital graphics. You can print off stickers and vinyl information, or magazines and so on would use giant versions of print press, or almost like plotters. Then we've got the obvious one of an output medium, which would be the monitors, computer monitors. Okay, so once upon a time you had 3 versions when this was written. So you've got the CRTs, you've got LCDs, and plasma monitors. Okay, and they all work in different ways. We've got the breakdown of what an LCD is here, breakdown of what a plasma is here. I'm not necessarily going to go through how each of them works. It doesn't really matter. It's there on the screen for you. However, a monitor will display those digital graphics that you've created. So whether it's an animation, whether it's a piece of art, a poster, a screensaver, a wallpaper, whatever you've created, or an image, it's going to display on the monitor. You're going to be able to view it via the screen. Okay, so a monitor is another example of an output medium. So as an activity, what I'd like you to do is think about emerging technologies, and this links directly to your brief. Okay, so what new output media devices can you think of? Bear in mind, I said we were talking about a 2010 specification here. So here's some examples that I've led you towards below. Okay, so we're looking at the Cintiq tablets, okay, which are very different. They come with their own screens and so on. We'd look at phones and iPads. How have these changed digital graphics? So, you know, being able to draw on the iPad on the go, and how that helps with studio dailies and things like that, and directors being able to draw on the trains and so on. We've got virtual reality. That's had a massive impact on the graphics industry, both 3D and 2D. How is this changing things up? And then we're talking about Ultra HD 4K monitors as well. What do you think that has had in terms of an impact? So these are some examples that I've found of output media devices. And if you can add any of your own, of course, that's great. And this is part of the merit and distinction quality stuff that you need to be looking at for this task, for this assignment. And also ask yourself, what impact is this having on the creation of digital graphics? How have these affected it, basically? So what can you think of, and how do they affect how graphics are made? How do they affect, what do you have to do that's different for these that would be different once upon a time when it was just for, you know, a simple plasma monitor, or a simple LCD, sorry, or a simple camera phone back in the day where we had very basic screens, okay, things like that. So have a think through these tasks. Hope you've enjoyed this activity. I hope you've, yeah, well, I do, but also I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and any questions, please do ask. Thank you.